Thank you for joining me today. I think we'll just start by saying, in the ever-evolving landscape of design, the concept of luxury has transcended traditional notions to embrace a new paradigm. Developers, architects, and auction houses are redefining their environments to create an experience that evokes resonance at its core. The definition of luxury has also evolved, with architectural landmark buildings such as the Henderson and Regent Hong Kong, and the spaces inside them, such as Christie's, becoming symbols of luxury, often representing the cities they are in. So design has to go beyond aesthetics only. So if we start by looking at the various design elements, I'd like to start with you, Sara. How important is context when you're designing a building?
I mean, for us, context is very important in every one of our designs. I think it's not only that we are working in context, I think the context of every one of our buildings is our first source of inspiration, together with the brief, of course. Because ultimately we're not only designing a building, not only a shelter, not only an interior space, but we are also creating an impact around it. You make a space also outside the building, around the building, you change the urban context and you change the social context. So ultimately, I think for us, it's a key driver in all our work.
Okay. I think Christie's headquarters, which is in the Henderson, I believe you're the first auction house to have a flexible design mechanism. Why was that so important when you were planning the space?
Look, so first, I mean, talking about where to host what we sell. We sell the best collections in the world, the most beautiful objects. And Ronnie was here on stage. He was talking about his jewelry sales. You can extend this into flat art, in Chinese works of art, Chinese ceramics, and so on. I don't think that the archetype of luxury for us was to sell at the convention center in Wanchai. So when the question came to actually have our own space, and which had to be in Central, there was no other place to be than the building that was designed for Henderson Land by Zaha Hadid. And now Hong Kong is being the city that it is, what the economics are, what the economics that we know. We can't take 15 floors in that building, as much as I would have loved to. I don't think our shareholder would have okayed this. So we had to work with the optimum space, being able to put our team, our specialists, all our support functions, some of the objects, and be able, with these 4 floors, to have a very flexible space where we can do not just, this is the auction room, this is the exhibition space, this is the office, this is a client meeting space, but we had to look at the functionalities on every square inch of that building, these 4 floors, and assign 2, 3, 4 different functionalities. So we didn't have the luxury to have more space, but then I think it pushed us within that amazing building to reinvent the way a space for an auction house would be designed. We have 50,000 square feet, which sounds like a very big space, but our colleagues in New York have 4 or 5 times more. And we could not afford to do this, and we could not probably even find it in Hong Kong. So it had to be flexible.
I feel like when I was there was always something new to discover as well within the design, which was really exciting. I think, Christina, the Regent designs also stand out for those rhythm and knots that are waiting to be discovered. Was that an intentional guiding design philosophy?
Yeah, so I think when we acquired the Regent's Hotel and we were thinking about how we are going to refurbish it, and the immediate thing when you think about hospitality is what kind of a theme, what kind of an emotional feeling that we want the customer to acquire or experience. So that kind of formed the theme. And we were thinking, because of course Regent is in a very iconic location with the panoramic Victoria Harbour view. So and Hong Kong is a very bustling city. So the way that we were thinking is we wanted to create an urban zen feel. And I think the way that we define the modern luxury is on simplicity, basically simple, lasting elegance. And that actually means everything is in the detail. So if you look at the design and you pay attention to it, in a room, nothing is actually extra. everything, every piece of furniture, every piece of lighting is there for a reason. So we don't want anything that's extra laying around. And so also when the customer enters the lobby, the Lo Chi Wing, who is our designer, he particularly put in the vertical chandeliers. So it kind of allow you to have a visual that it's focusing your eyesight, going in a focused way, and then going into the lobby, and then suddenly it opens up to the panoramic Victoria Harbour view. So that was actually purposefully done to ignite the sensories and emotions of how people feel. And I think without telling everybody about the details, you may not even feel it, but that's the difficulty of it. And the other bit that I always said to my friends that one of the best piece of furniture that I love the most in the entire hotel are the swirling chairs in the lobby lounge. All the chairs are actually 360-degree swirling because the purpose is no matter where you sit and what kind of meals you're having, business meals or with friends, if you want to think about something, you don't want to talk, you could actually swirl the chair and looking at the view, and create a dialogue out of it, right? So all of those are actually carefully thought through.
Yeah, and I think also as well, when you're thinking about things being carefully thought through, I think today's luxury sort of experience needs to really think about sustainability as well. And I'm interested to know, how do you at a hotel authentically integrate sustainability when you're doing a whole redesign of an iconic landmark?
So of course it allows us during the refurbishment to put in much more efficient energy systems, and also when we think about uniforms of our staff, we made use of recycled materials, and so all of those are intricately put in through the everyday working and operation of the hotel. Of course, we also treat food waste in a much more efficient manner. So all of those sort of sustainability elements are fully incorporated into the hotel and is continuing to develop as more of the systems and technology come into play.
Yeah, and I'm interested, Francis, on your side. How do you prioritize sort of sustainability within Christie's when you're ensuring that all the traditional elements of visual luxury alongside catering to your clients' needs?
So we're very serious about sustainability. We have announced already a few years ago that we would be carbon neutral in 2030. So we're the first player in the industry, and I think so far the only one, to make that commitment by reducing our carbon emission by 50% and offsetting the rest with credits. And then we would be reducing by 90% by 2050. So sustainability is very much at the core of a lot of decisions we make, and specifically a decision like the one we made to move to the Anderson. So we could not have moved in a place where the certificates of sustainability, and Sara, you know that way better than I do, are of the highest grade. And it basically has everything. I think it's the only building in Hong Kong that has just so many medals when it comes to sustainability. So think about the business model of Christie's when every few weeks we actually we put together a show, and you put up partitions and you have to hang paintings and then you move things around. When we were at the convention center, we take a floor plate, 100,000 square feet, and build everything. So is that very sustainable? No, you move a lot of things in, you build things, and you scrap it. A lot of it we're trying to reuse. And what we've managed to do with the design of that new space is we're able to move from selling small objects, diamonds, a piece of arcade jet, to a large canvas without having to build anything. So we have 50% of the walls that are built into our 2.5 floors of exhibition space, which are absolutely movable. So it creates so many combinations of actually layout for us, adapted to the objects, to the collection that we have. And most importantly, we don't have to build and scrap things that we had to build and scrap before. The efficiency of the building is here to help, whether it's energy consumption, water consumption. But the move also to the Anderson has allowed us to fully rethink a lot of things in the company. We moved to a fully open space for all our staff. And when you move to an open space, well, guess what? The first thing you want to do is get rid of paper.
Yes.
So we got rid of 95% of the paper that we had, and we get rid of 95% of the paper that we've been generating through different processes of contract emission and so on. So I think sustainability remains one of our priority. We did organize actually 2 years ago, and Sara kindly joined us to speak on that summit, an Art and Sustainability Summit.
Yes.
We know there are certain areas where we still need to work, typically on data centers, but there's a few areas where we've done tremendous progress, and one of them is the operations, and that includes, of course, the buildings where we are.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about the role that ethical sourcing and regenerative design played in the design of the Henderson. Sara?
I mean, for us, I think nowadays any architect and increasingly more any client and definitely the end user is demanding that sustainability is one of the key considerations from the beginning on. So you of course, you do specify materials. You try, if you can, also start to think about where the materials are coming from and what's the construction process and the waste during the construction, etc. So it's in the end, it's a common effort from everyone involved. So a lot of work goes into that. Yeah. But what we come across quite often, which I think is worth mentioning here, which I find always a bit peculiar, but is probably a hangover from previous times where luxury was associated with more, with abundance. But when you really think about it, luxury and sustainability, they share common values. It's quality over quantity, it's durability over disposability, and it's craftsmanship over mass production. So in the end, and I think we see that with the new definition of luxury, what you heard about it today a lot, you can see this perception changing, and actually sustainability becomes an integral part for any luxury development.
Actually, if I may add on to what Sara mentioned, because to create that sense of zenness, we also focus on the use of materials. And so there was a heavy focus for the regions to focus on the raw materials and the natural stones because we wanted to create that nature connectivity that adds to the tranquility of how one would feel. And that also link on directly to wellness. Right? Whether you come in and emotionally you feel calm, and after all, hotel is a place of rest when you come in from a bustling city. So all of those incorporated with the color palette was also purposefully earth tone oriented. Right? So all of those are, to me, it's kind of like almost back to basic. Right? Like the human and the nature. How do you blend them in together and create the natural self?
And one more thing, because Francis was talking about the flexibility of their spaces, and I think flexibility in building design or in any kind of spaces is extremely important, because those buildings are going to be here for 50, 100, maybe even more years. We don't know how workplaces will change, how the demands will change. So to have a space which is flexible and adaptable for a multiple of uses is probably the most sustainable way of designing a space.
I think also as well, there's a lot of technology that comes into play with all of your spaces. And I think I'm interested in how do you make sure that the technology within the building or the space doesn't sort of complements rather than overshadows the emotional and sensory aspects of what you're trying to achieve.
So and I guess I can start to answer this
yes,
one, right?
Yes.
When we started, so we signed the lease in July 2021, and we started working on the design in 2022. And as all of you would remember, it was in the middle of COVID. It was towards the tail end of COVID. And there's, in our industry, two things that fundamentally got changed with COVID. The first one, like many other companies, people started to discover working from home, for good or bad. And we had to design our office with the thought that the real competitor to working in the company in the office was actually to working from home. So what is it that the office would bring that working from home would not? That's the first thing. So put that on the side, but it was a very important one. The second one was how our industry and many others had massively pivoted towards digital. You couldn't have in-person viewings, you could not have in-person auctions, so many things that used to be very physical in our business model. We did have all the tools, but I think our sellers, our buyers just were a bit more reluctant to use that. If you look at Christie's today, first half of the year, 80% of the clicks, 80% of the bids, of our line and on live sales were online bids. We have a sale actually running today of classical paintings. You have bids at 3 million, 4 million Hong Kong dollar being placed from I don't know where in the world. So for us, pivoting into digital in the past years has been essential, and designing a space that would completely incorporate this was very important. So what does that mean? It means things like when you have 40 million people tuning into your live streaming sales in a year, you want to make sure that the experience that you provide, even if it's a fairly small sale room, the experience is first grade. When you have digital art that actually pops up into being one of the most successful categories, then a bit less, maybe back again, you want to make sure that you're able to present these things. So I think digital has been completely core to what we do and to the design of the space. And what we live, the world we live in now is a world where you have all the digital innovation, the tools that facilitate the presentation of objects and facilitate the transaction of these objects. And we're able to project and to offer to people who dial in, tune in online, hopefully the same experience and quality that the one that they would have in our space. And of course, I'm not going to talk about social media. We have an incredible followership of Xiaohongshu. We're, I think, the second luxury brand, if we are a luxury brand, just behind Vuitton. We have over 400,000 followers and all the others. So this is very much part of what we do.
So that personalization is really important as well. And I'm trying to understand a little bit, what role, Christina, does personalization play when you're regenerating a luxury hotel? How do you anticipate the needs of your client?
So I think sometimes because me and my brothers and people in my family, we are all frequent travelers. So sometimes we ourselves are already the kind of customer that a true luxury hospitality would be targeting. So there are small little things, at least for myself, and I find myself also sharing some of those experiences when we are discussing what little extra touches that we could do to differentiate ourselves. So, for example, I remember I go to the Middle East quite a lot, and they have many nice hotels. But I always remember the Rosewood is because they would have they would stitch on my initials on a pillowcase, and the next time it would be on the laundry bag, or the next time it would be on a slipper case, and all that. Those are very, very small, small gestures, but it actually leave a very lasting impression. And sometimes just because of that, when I have to pick which hotel to go back to, I will go back to that one, which gives this little bit of extra. And the other thing is we also talk about sustainability. So a lot of hotels that they give little gifts or little pillow spray and all of that, but a lot of times they gone to waste. Most of the people don't take them away, they don't use it. Whereas these little touches that I meant, which is special, it's sustainable because you either take the pillowcase away with you as a souvenir, or you leave it there and they actually take the stitches out, right? So I think these are little things when, as you travel, you yourself would experience those experiences. And of course, the other thing that I value a lot for a super high luxury is really just remembering people's names, even as visited one time, you return, they already remember, which I actually think it's very impressive. And all the other things are pretty common already by now because of technology, which is to remember all of your habits, right? Allergic pillows and all that, you don't have to ask them for it again, right? And so all of those, I think it does define what differentiate one luxury versus another luxury hotel.
Yeah, so it's much about the journey as it is about the design and the product. I think, Sara, are there risks to over-customization? How do you maintain that cohesive identity while catering to these individual needs?
I mean, I guess that's the key talent required for any designer or architect is you have to listen and understand the needs and the requirements and the wishes and the tastes of your clients, but then you have to at the same time remain authentic to your own vision or to the vision you're creating, and address it, listen, incorporate it, and still create a unique story. Of course there's a risk, but it requires the talent in the end to make a story of all the needs and the customization aspects. It's not just simply addressing every single wish and putting it together, then you get a mess, right? You have to make a story. You have to tell a story, I think.
And Francis, was there an emotional impact? How important is that for the Christie space?
It's very important. It's always fascinating to be on a panel with you, Sara, because we live in the home that you've designed, so I have to be so grateful for all the good things you've done. And we were discussing, just getting on stage, that one of the things that surprised me the most when we moved a few weeks ago into the Anderson is not just the aesthetics. Of course, everybody's seen the aesthetics, seen the videos, seen the picture, and maybe some of you have been into the building. Of course, that's very striking. But it's just the feeling of being inside. You have this bubble in the middle of Central, which is a very buzzing place in Hong Kong. It's quiet. You have very high ceiling height. You have natural light flowing into each and every one of the floors. There's fantastic work being done on the acoustics of the aircon and all these things. All these things I don't know anything about because you're the expert, but it just gives you a very unique experience just being in that space. And we think that's the best when you want to be in front of a Monet or a Van Gogh or a Zaha and experiencing the objects and having, as collectors should have that dialogue with the object that you're considering maybe to acquire. So you don't want to be in a place which is noisy, where there's too many people. You don't want traffic. You want to be with the object, just like that's what you enjoy when you're in a museum. You want to have that communion with the object. So I think the emotional connection to the object actually comes across when you're able to have that very unique moment. Try to experience a Mark Rothko painting with noise around you. Try to experience even a Nymphea, with noise around you. It's not possible, because you just have to get into the object, right?
Yeah, but when he says noise, I see a shitty ceiling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You say noise, and I see, a metal. No, here, okay, I'm not. So it's about listening and then really transforming it into what it means in the end.
So, and again, when I decide to emphasize that point, I think when we think about design of places, we think too much about visual.
Yeah.
And I think what struck me the most when I moved into that building is just the overall experience that you have. And that, the light, it's quiet.
It's a feeling,
right? And the feeling, the
yeah.
space. It's not huge, but you feel you have space, And I think that's really what, for me, defines luxury as a place where you want to experience exceptional objects.
I think emotions also, for example, the Regent story, I would say, when we were reopening the hotel after a long refurbishment, we were thinking of a story. A story actually also captures an important emotion of the history of the hotel. And I think, within our global portfolio of hotels, Regent is definitely very iconic, and there is another one that is actually a very long history, is the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, both of which tells a very, very good story with a background. So for the Regent, obviously in the 80s was when it was built as a Regent when it first came out. And in the 80s all the way through, Hong Kong has propelled itself to be the global city of the world. And to an extent that in the recent years, even though there have been changes and whatnot, but I think all of you would agree that whenever you come back and step foot in Hong Kong, the vibrant nature is there. Everybody still love it. So in a way, when we reopened the hotel as a Regent, rebranded from the Intercon, it brought back a lot of positive nostalgic memory of Hong Kong, and everybody wanted to come back to experience, you could call it the revival or the rebirth of the rebranded Regent. It's almost like living through the Hong Kong growth, and we are now at another stage. So it is a very, very iconic representation of Hong Kong with this particular asset. So I think that storytelling is also very appealing.
Yeah, storytelling I think is hugely important when you're looking at design and someone's experience, for sure. We're almost out of time, I'm afraid, but I do want to ask one last question. What emerging trends do you think will shape the next generation of luxury spaces? Sarah?
I think the topic of sustainability will continue and will grow necessarily so, and I think we should all hope that this is moved much more, even more in the center than it already is. I think technology will continue to play a massively important role, but in a way that I read the other day an expression, somebody saying shy tech. But the explanation for this was you want the technology to be there and to support you, but you don't want to see it. You don't want to see gadgets, you want to see buttons, not too many screens. So in the end, it needs to be really intuitive. And that's where we're moving to. And that will be tremendously interesting for spaces.
Tina?
Yeah, as I was thinking about this question, it's very interesting. Again, I go back to the hospitality nature of it because I'm trying to represent region here, is that there are many interesting new businesses that's coming along. First of all, we have the Gen Z population that is becoming more of a nomad type of people, and so they don't necessarily think of owning a home, a permanent home in one place, as the way it should. I'm trying to instill that kind of belief in my children. They seem to be going along with it, but in actual fact, they didn't think that is a necessity. So all of a sudden, we are actually getting a couple of our very, very, the most beautiful specialty suites at the region right now that we would be getting inquiries to do long leases, like a year long, 2 years long, right? Those are the best suites there are. And then last night I had the privilege to meet with a very, very young and capable entrepreneur that is using high-end luxury hotels as a way for his business, which is to service the very high-end, like let's say after birth, people wanted to stay away from home with very, very well treatment, elderly, who are capable to do so. So it seems like the high-end hospitality is also changing form as to the kind of business or users that you could target. Well, thanks to the very smart entrepreneurs out there, think of different businesses.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
I was talking to some of my friends who work in luxury as fashion, and everybody knows that Asia has been tough, China has been tough, and people are buying less handbags, buying less shoes, buying less, coats or shirts. We have a cluster within Christie's. We have art, we have fine art, but we have luxury as well. Within luxury, you have jewelry, watches, wine, and spirits, and handbags. And that cluster actually has been doing very well, including in Asia, and with Asian buyers being active across our sales sites, not only in Hong Kong, but also New York, Geneva, London, or Paris. And I think it's a sign of a true less is more. So not just less is more, is better, and less is actually more. So I think there is recentering around less things, but things that are deeper, that are more valuable, that have history. For 250 years, we've been doing second hands. Yeah. We are reselling stuff. And if you don't want it, we can still resell it, by the way. And I think it's something that really continues to get traction, I think, in the younger generations. Yes, I think that in luxury is not about more. It's about less, better.
So the continuation of luxury space and a product, but just the best type going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.